Greetings, everyone. Welcome once again to the Oz and Crew Reviews podcast. I'm here once again with Mad Matt.
Hello.
This time, we're here to talk about the last Matrix movie that will hopefully ever be made.
We can only pray.
Because, how to describe this? It was garbage, but it was well produced garbage, I think is the best way we can put it.
You can shiny up a turd, but at the end of the day, it's still only a turd.
'Cause
It's
It's,
just a nice looking turd.
yeah, the special effect, as you were pointing out while we were watching it, the special effects and the um, fight scenes were great, but like the problem is it's just a terrible fucking storyline that's holding it together.
And there are even a couple moments here and there where the bad story just interrupts the good action. It's just like, what the hell are we even doing now? Majority of it's really good, and then you just got these weird moments that seem to come out of nowhere. And it's just like this is supposed to somehow up the ante, but I just feel like this is really lame idea. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Just something to throw into the movie to throw in there. Make more of a weird spectacle out of it.
Yeah, how do I put it?
Thought.
It was. It starts out like it has such a slow build up because so much of it, because of the way they handled the storyline, they retreat a lot of ground from the original. Um, because the how do we put this?
It is a reboot and yet a sequel at the same time.
Yeah, Neo didn't die.
Hmm.
He he um he got replugged into the Matrix and basically had his memory wiped.
Which is technically a good thing because essentially they used a bunch of nanobots to remake him in Trinity. So it was a very painful, slow experience. And then they, again, memory wipes, so they don't remember any of it. But they're both plugged into the Matrix because using and abusing them inside the Matrix actually helped to produce more power than the robots had ever seen before. After the robots also apparently had some sort of fight because of so many people leaving the Matrix and no longer having power for the robots to run on anymore.
Yeah, basically it was a robot civil war.
Yeah.
But
Well, it's not even a civil war. It's more of a robot. We need battle for just energy.
but they waste so much time in the beginning of the movie, both getting to the point where Neo is freed from the Matrix again, and then they have to give you all the exposition about what's changed in the world because it actually, while the movie is being made 20 years later, the end storyline explanation is that it's 60 years later, and nobody knows why Neo is not aged as much as he should have in that amount of time.
Until we get to the whole piecing them back together thing.
Yep.
I think that's supposed to be their excuse for it, but again, hand wavy.
And there's a bunch of weird decisions with some of the casting because obviously now granted there's a new Morpheus. It's not supposed to be the same character because the actual Morpheus is dead. There's a new Morpheus that was a program that was made by Neo in a video game that was supposed to be Agent Smith. It's so confusing just saying it out loud.
Yeah, so it's a hodgepodge of Smith and Morpheus, and yeah. Should I just like broad stroke really quickly what this plot is? Like I can do. I've been practiced on this. I can
Yeah,
probably do
go
this in a couple
go
minutes
ahead. Go
tops.
ahead. Go ahead.
All right. So sit and buckle in, folks, and listen real hard and long on this one. So the Neo and Trinity are remade. Neo becomes a game developer, which seems to be an in joke about all the unsuccessful Matrix games. That joke just keeps getting beaten to death for like the next 10 minutes. Trinity in the Matrix, she is a different, supposedly a different woman who's now married and has like several kids, and really big into bikes still. That's the only like trait they allow her to keep having. Um, 20 years in the Matrix time, 60 years outside. Um, Apparently, Neo has, as again, Mr. Anderson has had a meltdown at one point where he believes everything in the Matrix is real, even though he's being told to realize that it's all fake and it's pseudo based off of real things that he put into a video game, but it's not. None of it's actually real. Also, apparently, everyone sees him as a balding old man, and they all see Trinity as an aging blonde woman, and they still see each other as each other actually looks like. Um, so this girl from the outside bumbles in, finding I guess it was a server of some kind that somehow a backdoor open. Come to realize that it's a training module, and that it's the training module for the new Smith slash Morpheus. She manages to get a hold of him. He's technically slightly broken his own code, having seen the Matrix code while inside the continuing cycle of training, and has kind of pseudo trying to figure out what he's doing here and what it's actually going on. They communicate for a few moments, and they're able to use the back doors to finally get out. And also, she's able to red pill him and get him out of the Matrix, or this pocket of the Matrix, essentially. Um, a little while later, they try to make contact with Neo. He freaks out, runs away. They make contact again. This time, they're able to actually get him to cooperate. Um, his psychologist almost drags him back in, but they manage to save him from that and just in time to finally make the big jump. He has basically the same reawakening as number one. He wakes up, he then is more nicely shipped over to the new ship, and come to find out that AIs who have also had physical forms outside the Matrix have also been turning on the machines, at least in large, and they've been helping out the humans, and they now have a secret base. Niobe is the new leader. At some point, they don't really explain very well. Morpheus had died apparently during those machine versus machine wars, as well as a number of other people. Um, so, in order to try and protect the new human world, and because they've been able to keep the secret of where they're at for so long, they initially tried to imprison Neo. The ship crew that saved him decides to head back out. Um, I forget what they were able to do. They get back in.
They
Turns out his buddy, that's a developer, like CEO, is also the real Smith, and he's kind of awakened to that now.
Yeah, that's also when the hobo version of the Merovingian shows up.
Oh yes, just him spitting a lot of angry French and then spitting at people. Yeah, this
They
was
got in. He briefly contacted Trinity before the analyst interrupted them, which is when he revealed that he wasn't actually a psychiatrist. He's basically the replacement for the architect.
yeah. He's technically the new architect, and that's also when he reveals a lot of the stuff to Neo, including the fact that he's now got new double bullet time, which Neo doesn't have yet. So he's able to actually slow down Neo and outpace him and do stuff. So he threatens Trinity's life in order to make Neo come back and behave himself and continue providing the huge amount of power, energy that they need out of the both of them to keep things running again. Um, he has to go. They have to report back to Niobe. The machine comes up and then talks Niobe out of essentially impersonating, etc. All the whole lot of them. And it turns out that the program inside the one of the programs that's communicating through the machine is the little girl from the previous trilogy. She's now basically an adult, and her parents were killed during the wipe for the new Matrix. Um, but her turns out also her parents were responsible for making the special pods from Neo and Trinity. And as a last resort to try and hopefully undo the damage they've done, they left all the information with their daughter. Um, So with that in mind, she has all the plans needed to try and make an attempt at Trinity. They manage to slip in undetected. They talk to the architect to have him bring in Trinity again. And just as she's about to leave, falling for the Matrix tricks, she finally pops out of it, literally smashes her air quotes husband's face in, and then proceeds to join Neo in walloping a bunch of AI controlled people until they are able to free themselves. They have a few close calls with the other people who get attacked by the AI. I guess you can call it an agent swarm, not so much an AI swarm. Essentially, the agents can swarm as multiple people, almost like zombies. And they never switch faces. They just have like code in their eyes, and that's how you can tell they're agents now. It's a cheaper effect.
Yeah.
It allows for mass groups instead of just 2-3 guys. Um, they have this huge fight that goes through the streets. They start throwing weird stuff at us. That's one of the few times when you really start to notice that there's some weird stuff here and there that doesn't quite make any sense. But it's obviously thrown in there to, again, add to the spectacle of things. They manage to get to a rooftop, which is when Trinity fully awakens to her normal self. While this is all going on, the machine that helped them free her is also able to hook her back into the Matrix, so they've been able to swap her out really quick with the help of one of the other crew members.
Yeah.
Yeah, you basically using her brain as a temporary holding place for Trinity while they swapped her out of the official Matrix and into the robot. They get her to the ship where they can more easily swap her back in again. And they can basically continue to fight for a while until they get to the rooftop. The others are able to log out. They have a few moments where they're fighting on the rooftop, and then Trinity suddenly has a moment as they're leaping off the building where she's finally able to fly. And the two of them finally take off, are able to unplug, finally meet in person again for real, then plug back into the Matrix to basically F up the architect, and then tell him, yeah, we're going to make our own changes. You can't stop us. Bye. And then
Yeah.
that's basically the end of the movie with a really lame song.
Yeah. And then we can kind of talk about some of the individual parts that happen
Yeah.
throughout all that. It to me is such a weird decision to just go, well, actually, they're both the one. Wouldn't they be the two?
Yeah, wouldn't it be the two now? It's now the two.
It's kind of a weird decision.
I just thought of a joke, but it's a meme joke. I'm not going to bother with it right now. It just tickled me. But yeah, it does. It feels like so many things in this movie. There, it's just the new stuff is really ham-fisted.
Right. Well, it's like
Like here,
it's
go ahead.
garbage, but it's well produced garbage. That's what I
Yeah.
said is because now the special effects are good, the fight scenes are good, except for that one point where some reason the swarm guys just started being people throwing themselves out of like skyscrapers at them and just splatting on the ground. It's like, okay, I understand the concept of the swarm, but does it really make sense to just the people are their batteries? Does it really make sense to just throw a bunch of them to their death at, like when they have next to no chance of actually hitting? That didn't
Oh,
make any sense.
again, somehow this is again supposed to try and convince Neo and Trinity to plug back in and be batteries again because they're the best batteries in the whole wide world.
To me, it made no sense, and it felt like it was
No, it
literally just
doesn't.
there because they thought it would look cool.
Yeah, it's there for spectacle. Matter of fact, they even call them bombs at one point. It's like that's not a bomb.
Yeah, that's
That's a suicide window diver is what that is, and it's still really weird. Um,
it made me it just mentioning that just suddenly made me remember when we did the podcast about the Double Dragon movie when the guy jumped off the building and yelled
oh,
airmail.
airmail. For hell. Oh, Lordy be. Actually, let me go and this should be fine. The Matrix Resurrection.
I,
I also wanted to check something really quickly on our people that are in this movie because we
not
weren't sure if Niobe
Niobe.
was the original
It
actress or
it is.
not.
It is. It's Jada Pinkett Smith.
It is Jada Pinkett Smith.
Yes. So they just use
The
makeup to
A's
make her look
makeup,
old.
yeah.
And they did have the Merovingian's original actor. It's just that because he was a bearded hobo, it basically didn't look like him at all. The only reason
At
you
least
know
not
it's him is
first.
because he starts yelling in random French.
Yeah. Starts yelling random French and shouting, you did everything at Neo.
I'm
And
curious.
also his almost nine indestructible people are back somehow.
I'm
Some
curious.
more leftover
Is
code.
T actually the same actress
Actually,
that
that's a
played her
good
as a little
question.
girl? That's one I meant to check. Uh, Jeez. Nope. No, Satia's actually a new actress, and I'm not. That's hard to complain about
That's yeah, it's hard, yeah. That was a little girl,
because
so it's hard to complain and hard to
because
say on that one.
because the little girl that played her originally might not even be an actor anymore.
True, very true.
But yeah, but obviously one of the big ones that you were pointing out how like in the scenes with Smith, with the action, the acting, the music, they were really trying.
Trying
But
so desperately hard.
the main thing that just keeps it from being an iconic moment as it should have been is the fact that it's not Hugo Weaving.
Yeah, it's not Hugo Weaving. You can just it's just not right if you're not seeing Hugo Weaving's sneering, angry face as he's trying to wallop Neo again. As he's trying to land on some more blows onto Keanu Reeves. It just isn't the same. Also, again, this guy, the new guy for Smith, Jonathan Groff. I'm looking at the list here, and the new Morpheus. Oh wow, that's a heck of a name. Sorry, I can't pronounce that. Yahya. Both of these
Yahail
guys.
Abdul Mateen.
Mateen. There we go. The second, apparently. Um, both of these guys, they're trying their asses off to try and do this, but these are some big shoes to fill, and honestly, I don't think they gave them quite good enough stuff to fill them with.
Right.
I think that's also the major problem here too, is that they're not the same actors, so they're not going to act it out the same way as the previous ones did. So it's very difficult unless you have the originals there to like coach them to do it right, to quite get it. You can get little moments and little gleams out of it, but you're not going to nail it. It's going to be very hard to nail it.
And while I kind of hate the way the theme for her name, the fact that the one girl's name is Bugs and she has a rabbit tattoo.
She has the rabbit tattoo. She has a carrot on her shirt.
But in spite of all that, the freaking blue-haired girl was probably one of my favorite things about the movie, and she's actually a completely new addition. And that's probably part of why she was enjoyable. She was a new character, so they weren't screwing up something that was already in the
That
movies
already
before.
existed. She was an interesting character that had some side stuff here and there to do, and they weren't completely blowing out her
Right.
character because her character is brand new to the story.
Yeah, she was obviously the most important. Well, her and the new Morpheus. That is technically a new character, but
Well,
those
I think blue hair is Bugs though,
yeah,
isn't she?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was saying she was my favorite thing about it. I was saying I don't like the stupid
I don't
Bugs
like the
name.
gimmicky stuff attached to her, but the character itself is actually decent. Yeah.
Yeah, but her and the new Morpheus were basically the two most important new additions to the cast.
Hmm.
But she's to me stood out way more than him.
Oh yeah. Again, you're trying to fill in the shoes for the original actor, and it's a tall order. It's a very tall order.
Yeah, even if you say it's a new character, you named him Morpheus.
Yeah, you still renamed him Morpheus. It's still technically supposed to be on some level Morpheus, and it's not quite clicking. And again, nothing against the actor. I think it's just the way it was made.
Yeah,
Just didn't quite mesh.
he was a great actor, but it just didn't really
Hmm.
feel right. It's like the Agent Smith fights. Just didn't quite feel right because it's not the actual actor. Like, because seeing those fights happen again, and the part later on during like part of the final confrontation where Smith actually helps Neo, that would have been way more impactful if it
That
was
was
actually Hugo Weaving.
so much more impactful if that was Hugo there. Even if it was digital Hugo, maybe it would have been just a hint better. But I would have also argued would have probably gotten that. What's that called? The whatever valley.
Uncanny Valley.
The uncanny valley effect to it. Sadly, if they did try that, so I'm like,
Well, and
much as I would want it, it still wouldn't have worked.
they also couldn't have really done it without his permission. So it's like
That's the thing
it,
too.
it,
They would have had
it,
to still ask him for the okay. They don't have to for footage, but they have to get the okay for making new things with his likeness.
yeah,
Yeah,
and it's probably granted he might have looked at the actual script and just been like, no, this looks terrible.
That's my assumption at least as to why he's not involved. But I can't say for sure. I can't talk for the man.
Yeah,
He just wasn't there for a reason that he wasn't there. And why am I constantly blanking on uh, Morpheus's actor?
Lawrence Fishburne.
That's yeah, Lawrence. And yeah, and Lawrence didn't want in this or couldn't make this one for whatever reason.
Yeah, or they just as part of the actual plot just decided they actually wanted to kill his character off.
Wanted to
It's
kill off his character and put a new person in place.
because there's
Yeah.
really if you think about it, there's really not that many returning characters in this. There's Trinity, there's Smith, and there's Niobe. And I think the other black woman that was friends with Niobe might have been a character from the previous movies, but I couldn't really place my finger on which one she was.
I honestly thought she might have been an actress for one of the previous versions of what's her name? The Oracle,
The
but
Oracle.
again, I couldn't say for sure off the top of my head.
And that'd also be a weird choice because she was
Been 20
somebody
years or so.
she was somebody that's supposed to actually be in the real world, so using an Oracle actress for that would have been kind of a
Yeah, that
odd
would have been a little
decision.
weird.
But yeah, and there were also some things about that were just weird, like the oh yeah, we get along with the machines now as long as they're not the machines that are in charge of the Matrix. Story point where they've got machines in the new city IO because Zion's gone, but they're like the machines helped us make strawberries. What? That
Yeah.
was that was such a weird plot point.
Okay, so we got better plans, and okay.
And that was another one of those scenes where, like, because we pointed out this is actually the longest movie in the series.
Oh yeah,
That was a scene. Some of the stuff about how what was going on in the new city is stuff that probably could have been cut because it didn't really help the storyline in any way.
yeah.
And it's like,
That could have waited if they actually had the time to make a proper sequel again.
and as we mentioned, because the thing was with Neo was that they had it so with him plugged back in with his memory wiped, he was a game developer and he actually had made the Matrix trilogy as video games. And they had this annoying, long, self congratulatory back padding session where for like 10 minutes they were going on about how you can't make the Matrix 4 in the Matrix 4. Like,
Yeah,
that was so much of that could have just been cut. Like, it didn't need to be there for the story.
yeah. A lot of it. Yeah, there's definitely long stretches of stuff that could have just been snipped.
And that just added to the amount of time we had to wait till we got to the point where stuff that actually
Yeah,
mattered happened. It's like,
and they have a building the game montage. That montage could have been literally cut in half very easily, and we could have saved a lot of time to actually get something done. Maybe even extend a fighting sequence so it'll be looking a little better. Who knows?
But like aside from the hokey plot for the movie, it takes because of the fact that they essentially wrote it in a way where even though it's a sequel, it's kind of a reboot. They have to get things up to speed, get Neo out of the Matrix again, and then they have to basically tell you everything that's going on that's changed since the previous movie.
Hmm.
And that's like an hour of the movie wasted almost on a sequel where everything should have already been set up from the previous movie. I understand they have to explain some things due to the fact that the movie is being made 20 years later, but
Yeah.
like there was way too much exposition and stuff that they had to put in the
It's
front end.
too, yeah, too, yeah, it's just too front loaded, too weighty on trying to explain everything. Another step and then explain everything again. And why is this happening this way? And why aren't agents working the way agents used to work? Yeah, you just, can we just move on?
Right. But I mean, and
Yeah.
at the same time, I find I find it hard to be like too harsh on this movie compared to like some of the bad movies that we've talked about in the past podcasts and
Well,
some of the ones we might end up talking about in the future if we keep doing the podcast. Because as bad as this is, it's not Jason Goes to Hell.
no, this isn't a complete and total betrayal, but it feels really awkward. It is a very rough start. Um, there it could yeah, it could be a lot worse. It could be your Jason Goes to Hell. It could be your Halloween 3. But
It could be Rise of the Skywalker.
I know. There's a rising group of Halloween 3 fans.
Yeah,
It still isn't canonical with the rest of the franchise.
yeah.
Stop it. It's weird.
It
Um,
could have been as bad as Rise of the Skywalker, which committed the
oh,
unforgivable sin of just being fucking boring. They made a Star Wars movie that was boring. I
how do you do?
like I watched it for free and I still wanted my money back because that was so boring. There's so many movies that are worse than this in spite of like I think I hated this more on my first watch of it than I did this time because I think at the time
To be fair, if you didn't go embracing yourself, it was probably quite the shocker.
yeah, I think when I watched it
How
originally
fundamentally bad it was.
I
Yeah.
was laser focusing on every single thing that was wrong with it. It's a movie that you can enjoy as a dumb action movie, but the plot is fucking stupid.
Yeah, you really have to front load your brain to just ignore everything and maybe fast forward through the first like 15, 20 minutes of the movie to get to the first bit of decent stuff.
Right. I can say
Why are we having an action sequence? What do we care? Just give me my action sequence.
I can say for a fact that if we actually do the Terminator movies, we're gonna have a lot worse things to say about some of those entries than we do for
Oh.
this one.
Oh boy. Oh yeah. The
Anything
same would
else?
also go for the Predator movies if we ever go through some of the later ones. Apparently, at least one of them for sure.
Yeah, one of them is really bad. Most of the other Predator movies are decent
Actually,
aside from the
surprisingly
Predator.
decent. Yeah, outside of the Predator, I haven't seen Prey yet, but I've not really heard anything definite on it
I've heard
either.
kind of like mixed things about it. I've heard some people say it's great. I've heard some people that didn't really care for it, but it's not. From what I understand, it's not anywhere near as bad as the Predator.
So they rebounded slightly on that one.
Granted,
Anything else?
Prey was also made after Disney acquired the IP when they bought Fox, while the
Yeah,
Predator was made before Disney bought Fox.
true. Although I think it was finished after they got it.
Right,
I think
but they might have actually had some input on it, which if they did, it would have been one of the few cases in recent memory where they actually improved something instead of making it worse.
maybe. Um,
But right now we're talking
but
about Warner Brothers fucking things up.
Da 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 da. Hollywood. But focusing back on this one for a hot moment. So yeah. Oh. Oh gosh, my brain doesn't remember names. Um.
Describe the
I,
character,
the new architect.
the analyst.
Oh, the analyst. I guess that's his new nickname now, isn't it?
Yeah, that's actually what he's credited as in the credits.
I almost had the right page. That one. There we go. So the analyst, Neil Patrick Harris. I've said this about him being in Doctor Who. He's a very good um, character actor for these over the topy, multi-dimensional, almost deity like beings. He's actually really good at that. He's really good at that headspace. He was a little more flamboyant at times and over the top with the toy maker in Doctor Who, but the good parts of that definitely show in the analyst. They toned him down a bit and they got him to reel it in, and he's really damn good
Yeah,
and really menacing on this one.
unlike the architect who just throws out fancy words,
And sits in a chair half the time.
the analyst is actually a character. That is one
And
thing I can say about this movie.
yeah, he is actually a character. He actually seems to pose some sort of possible threat for them, but he hasn't fully shown his hand yet either. So he took some licks at the end of the movie, but I'm pretty sure that's enough for him to go, yep, we're pulling out the stops again.
Yeah, and
Which could have led to something interesting in a sequel, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
it's very unlikely that there will be
Very
a
unlikely
sequel.
due to how poorly received this one was. So yeah.
And it also came out at a really bad time because there's a lot of movies around the time this came out that were theatrical streaming release at the same time, and it's like you're gonna hurt your numbers when you do that. It's like
Hmm.
how do you gauge how successful it was? Because
You really can't unless you're holding a lot of really big numbers to your chest for whatever reason.
as much as we're saying this movie was bad, there are some really bad movies that were financially successful. Pretty much all the Resident Evil movies are,
All the Resident Evil movies, the Transformers movies,
yeah.
those got, from what I hear, worse and worse, and somehow they still kept making more money.
I don't never underst I never understood that. I
After
just
the first one, I was done. Yeah,
Transformers, the first one is another movie I saw for free, and I wanted my money back.
I thought that the first time through it was fine. The second time through it, I was still okay. It's when I started hearing things about 2 and 3 that I'm just like, yeah, and I'm not going to bother watching this again.
Like I was at the point where I went into it expecting it to be bad. I didn't intend on watching it, but a friend got me to watch it, and I hated it. Like I remember looking at the designs and being like, come on.
So ugly and angular. Anyways, we're rambling again.
Yeah.
Um,
Any any final thoughts about this movie?
Shiny, but again, a fairly substantial disappointment, probably financially as well as how do I want to say it? Financially as well as ideally wise as
Okay.
to where to go with this. It
Yeah.
just seems to stub its toe and fall over.
Financial failure and probably a critical failure as well.
Hmm. The only the only person that's going to easily walk with this one off is Keanu because he's already got stuff like John Wick that'll help
Right.
him rebound.
Well, yeah, I mean, well, John Wick actually just came to an end, but still, it's like
Don't they have
he
another one coming up yet? I
no,
thought
no,
there was
no,
another one.
no. Four is the final one.
Okay.
And I guarantee you it's the final one. I just can't tell you why without spoiling it.
Spoilers.
So,
Still, Keanu is also one of those guys that anyone who's smart enough to hire him will
yeah.
have at least some numbers come in to watch it.
Yeah, one bad movie is not going to end his career, especially when it's a bad movie that's a sequel to a series of movies that were all relatively well received in comparison to this one.
Yeah. This is just one of those ideas that looked good on paper and have failed in execution, sadly. most likely, I should say, because I'm not sure how it looked on paper.
So I think
Uh,
that's more or less all we have to say about this
yeah.
one.
Yep.
So until next time, everybody, have a good one.
Good night.